Thank you for downloading this Lavante webisode. So this webisode is aimed at answering a very common question that we get in the sales cycle, which is if you've performed a recovery audit in the past and you didn't really get too many recoveries from it, is Lavante audit right for you? And our short answer to that is yes. We'd like to point out a couple of things. The AP recovery in general has trended down. Recovery totals are not what they used to be. And that's because the AP industry has seen the emergence of so many robust tools and providers. A whole industry has sprung up around the AP industry and specifically around the reduction of duplicate payments. So where 30 or 40 years ago there was a high propensity for incorrect or inaccurate transactions, you don't see that same thing now. Also, recovery providers require a lot of on-site support. So if you're wondering if recovery audit is right for you, if there's enough recoveries, you may also be thinking of the time and attention that you need to spend supporting your recovery auditor and thinking that there's an opportunity cost. So let's talk a little bit about the traditional recovery audit providers, the traditional methods. I'd like to take a simple landscape like this where we have a company on one side represented by a number of buildings, and these colorful discs are the different departments, and you have a couple of databases at the bottom. And on the right side you have a vast population of vendors. In traditional recovery, the firm would look at your AP records. This would be a historical file from a couple years ago, and it would require a lot of your time and support. So if they don't find recoveries, you're going to think, well, I laid out a lot of effort and energy, and you didn't find many recoveries, and I don't know if this is worth the effort. Additionally, traditional recovery will sometimes take a look at a sample of your largest vendors. And that's traditionally what you get from typical recovery methods. Now, Lavante does something very different. We look at your vast population of vendors. We don't sample just the top few. We know far too much to do something like that. We would be forsaking the majority of recoveries if we did that. And we are able to have visibility and gain visibility into all the overlaps and relationships within the vendor population. We're able to update records in the vendor population. And it's not simple for us to communicate with many tens of thousands of vendors, but we've spent 10 years developing a proprietary communication software engine so that we can sustain communication with the vast majority of your vendors. Let's talk a little bit about the differentiator between Lavante solution and traditional methods. Now, what we know from exhaustive benchmarking is that traditional recovery providers are at most going to look at 20% of your vendor population. In fact, the average is between 5 and 20%. So when we've highlighted the top 20% here, the 80 through 89s and the 90 through 100s, we're giving a lot of credits to traditional providers' review of vendor records. Lavante will look at all ranks of the vendor population. And as you can see here, the ranks are represented by the left column, the 01 through 09 rank, which is the vendors that you have the least amount of spend with. We're still finding 7% of our recovery totals from that rank where you don't have any spend. And there's some simple reasons for that. That's where you have parent companies, or that's where you may be sending checks even though you don't think you're doing business for that entity, or that's where the check's getting routed, and that's where the credits are getting posted. Well, our ability to rifle through the vendor population gives us the ability to have sight into these lower ranks and drive a phenomenal amount of credits where other recovery providers simply are not looking. So if in the past you've put too much support time to an effort and you haven't seen the recovery, you're not going to find that with Lavante, because we have the ability to dive very deeply into your file and generate recoveries where historically you have not seen them in the past. Our clients are thrilled with us. They know all about the differences that we provide. You can see a couple of the quotes on the screen now. And what people say about us is that we have a technology differentiator, that other firms are too invasive and that we are not, and quite frankly, that we're fun to work with. So thank you so much for downloading this webisode. We appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit more about us. We look forward to hearing any of your questions, and please send all of your emails to the email we have listed there on the page. Thanks a lot.